Okay, should we move on? Okay, 42. Anybody wants to read?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
दोषैरेतै कुलज्ञानां वर्णसङ्करकारकैः उत्साद्यन्ते जातिधर्मा कुलधर्मश्च शाश्वतः. Translation. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. Purport. Community projects for the four orders of human society, combined with family welfare activities, as they are set forth by the institution of Sanatan Dharma or Varnashrama Dharma, are designed to enable the human being to attain his ultimate salvation. Therefore, the breaking of the Sanatan Dharma tradition by irresponsible leaders of society brings about chaos in that society, and consequently, people forget the aim of Vishnu. Such leaders are called blind, and persons who follow such leaders are sure to be led into chaos.
Okay, chaos means confusion, right? So basically what Prabhupada is saying here is Varnashrama system is broken, then society will be led into confusion. And consequently, people forget the aim of life, Vishnu. Now, this is very, very important statement, which we are in ISKCON grossly miss. We are just ignoring this. The whole aim of Krishna consciousness society ISKCON is to spread Krishna consciousness to people. Now, the problem is if people are technically not in the Varnashrama system, right? Like their inclination to think about the aim of life will be zero or negative. Okay, what was the aim of Varnashrama system? Varnashrama system was the aim of Varnashrama system was that so that people will follow that, and consequently people come to the aim of life. Now, if Sanatana Dharma is forgotten, consequently people will forget the aim of life, right? And somebody might say bhakti is independent. Yes, bhakti is independent, but people's willingness to take up bhakti itself will be very less. So, how will bhakti spread? Right, so if the society is based on varnashrama, then the adoption of Krishna bhakti will be much higher, right? I mean, simple things to understand, right? Like today if you are in a city and then you have to depend on all this kind of ugra karma, then where is time to do bhakti? Like we've been discussing, right? Like suppose say you have to give 4 hours 5 hours for bhakti, where is the time? Because nobody has the time. But in the varnashrama system, generally the focus is not around money making, the focus is around Vishnu. All the varnas are there. I mean, it's not just a farm community, I'm saying. Even if basic varnashrama is there, right? Like, but it's not that it's easy to establish. But the point is that we are not even making an attempt as an institution, right? Like we are just, like I said, there were some presentations made in Mayapur saying that don't spoil your life by living in varnashrama societies, no, which is unbelievable, right? Like in Prabhupada's ISKCON, where Prabhupada has written so much about Varnashrama, people are talking about don't adopt Varnashrama, right? So anyway, so there's a different discussion, but the whole idea of Varnashrama was actually Varnashrama is a beautiful system, right? In Varnashrama, one of the main important things is Vritti Dharma. What about Vritti Dharma is when they were taught that Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, you just follow your Vritti from your past. So if your forefathers are something, then you follow it, right? Guna Karma will come. If it is not Varna Sankara, if it is pure Varna, then you will get the qualities from your ancestors, right? You will engage in Brahmana, engages in Brahmana work, and naturally he will live without expectations, live without attachment to results. So, some things that people today in today's world struggle to do, which is to be detached from the fruits of work, was very normal, right? And then because Vishnu used to be the center of the society, then they used to be engaged in bhakti from young age, right? So it was very easy for them to become detached from, and they used to live like grihasthas and not grahamedis. Grahamedis means sense enjoyment, family for sense enjoyment. Grihasthas means family for or ashrama for progressing towards Krishna. So the varnashrama used to produce grihasthas and not grahamedis. Modern society is producing grahamedis, Right, so and it was very easy because then after Grihastha, then they'll do Vanaprastha, and then they will perfect their life. At least we should talk about this, even if there are no projects, at least people should become aware. Right, otherwise the society will be put into chaos, confusion, which we are seeing today. Right, like absolutely people have no clue about what is the goal of life, how should they live life, what it's all about sense gratification, sense gratification, sense gratification. Right, so this is very important actually. These things which Arjuna foresaw then, right, clearly happening in Kali Yuga. People are just wasting their life, unfortunately. And yes, as preachers, our job is to wake people up. So the idea of these study sessions are, one is so that we can study clearly, nicely what Prabhupada is saying in his purports. Second is that we have to preach, because that is what Prabhupada is doing in his purports, right? Is preach, heavily preach, strongly, right? Not uh, lukewarm preaching, right? Strong preaching. People are saying like leaders are blind. Can we say these things? You go and stand in front of leaders and say you guys are blind. Prabhupada says that. And somebody says, we should not be so strong. Prabhupada could have done that. Why Prabhupada would write these things in his books then? Right? We should understand. We are not here to just become armchair philosophers, right? Like just sit in our room and, say strong things. Then when we go outside, we are like cats. No, right? So we should be bold and preach the message as it is, right? As preachers of Krishna consciousness. Okay, anything else on this verse? Anybody has anything to say?
Prabhu, this Varnashrama,
Yeah,
even though Krishna said it's Gunakarma Vibhagasya,
yeah.
but is it practical? Like, because people are selfish and they whoever stick to some higher ashram, higher varna, they will, even though they don't follow because of some respect and other benefits, they will stick to it.
No,
So
but
that's how
Varnashrama,
all this fall down came, right?
no, but
It
Varnashrama has
became
to be,
caste system.
yeah, Varnashrama has to be done in a particular way, right? That is why only, see, when we preach to people to make them understand, saying that, see, Varnashrama is for actually living, it's all equal. Like everybody in the society are equal, just that they are playing different roles. People need to be first made to understand that, right? I mean, it's just their nature is different, so they're engaged in different roles. That's it. Like for example, if somebody says like I'm superior to a Shudra, if Shudra is not there, then Brahmana cannot do his work. Practically, his work comes to a standstill. So technically, everybody is equal. Just that they have different abilities that they're bringing to table. Now, selfishness is the root cause of the society going to dogs, right? So Varnashrama, if we want to do, then we should bring together, we should educate people about what the system is, help them understand how to go about it, and then establish it. But it won't be like, it's going to take years and years to make it happen, but effort has to be made. That's the whole point, right? But going opposite, saying that, it's going to spoil your life is doing disservice to Prabhupada.
Yes, bro. But overall in society, how it's possible? Because
Simple, right?
people
Like
can't see this much.
if you go to Vrindavan today, even today, Varnashrama is in vogue, right? There are people who are driving hath rickshaws, they are still doing that only, right? Then there are people who are Vaishyas, who are sitting in Loi Bazaar, who are doing that for life, like generations after generations. Then there are Brahmanas who have been Brahmanas all their life, right? And their ancestors. So, see, in some cities, there this Varnashrama exists. Just in actually, if you look at it, right, the only place where we cannot relate to these things is cities, where it is all messed up. If you go to smaller towns and cities, there is still Varnashrama. There is somebody who's a Brahmana who's like historically his parents are, people have been doing that. Somebody is a carpenter because like it is there. Only when people started moving from smaller towns to cities is when all of this disruption started. So where that contamination is not there, these things still exist. Isn't it? Like, for example, if you if many of us here, or at least I don't, but many of you might have your hometowns, right, which are not cities, which are not Bangalore. Is the life there not different from Bangalore?
Yes, Prabhu. Definitely, there is still that caste system and different responsibilities for different castes are there.
Yeah. So, and people are happy. Actually,
But
if you ask them, it's not like they're unhappy. People are happy.
yeah,
In fact,
I saw in my childhood, people were happy with doing their jobs. But
yeah.
nowadays, right, it's all going
No,
away.
and
Their
our
kids are
vision is, see,
studying, and
Prabhu, our vision is colored because of city. We are living in cities, so our vision is colored by the what is happening in the city, right? But there are a lot of simple people who just want to be happy and they're not running behind money. We will engage them and do a varnashrama. No, what is the problem? We don't have to engage with city people. City people will go to dogs if they don't open their eyes. Can't help it. That is why heavy preaching is required. Actually, somebody was saying, city we should be soft. I said, like, it should be the other way around. City people are most spoiled. Unless you are heavy and tell them that they are going in the wrong direction, how will they actually learn? In fact, if you go to see, villages and all that, people still respect sadhus. But in city where there is respect for sadhus, they'll say you're just eating on somebody else's expense, right? Go and do some work. They'll say. I think that we don't have any work to do. So cities are the breeding ground for all nonsense in Kali Yuga, right? So unless we break out of it, I mean, which is why I see people from villages have come to city and they're spoiled by the effect of the environment in the city, unfortunately. So at least, as devotees, we should figure out some ways to, mm, at least don't not get stuck in the city rut, right? It's just killing, actually. I mean, especially if one is working in the city, is extremely demanding. No time for bhakti, just work, slog for nothing practically.
that's true, Prabhu. But the trend is whoever they're in villages, they want to come to city. Like people, they
Look,
give more respect to people who are in city. They are not understanding. In general, people are not understanding that um, there are different types of problems or
but
whatever it
can
is.
we start with
They feel
devotees
like,
then? Can we
yeah,
first start with
progress means,
devotees?
they feel like, yeah, having a house in city, living in city, job, car, all this.
No, let's
Whoever
be,
uh,
no, my
left
point is,
over in,
Prabhu, if we not worry about other people to start with, there is, see, for devotees itself, devotees themselves don't think that this is right. Devotees themselves don't think that, we should go out of cities. Devotees themselves think that we should live in city. Why we are talking about outsiders? First, let's try to understand why devotees can't understand this viewpoint, isn't it?
yeah, because of livelihood and
No, because we are
comforts.
just blindly attached to city life. That's it. Nothing else. What livelihood, Prabhu? Please, like, let's talk about practical reality, right? How much does one human being require to subsist? What does he require to subsist? He requires food and one shelter and clothes. That's it.
That's true, but human beings will not be satisfied with that, right?
Now, then we are animals. Sorry to say,
Yeah, that
right?
then we think about getting ahead in life and
No, then
experiencing.
it's not devotion. No, then we are not devotees.
Yeah.
Then we are karmis.
Yes, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you are see,
absolutely.
that's the point I'm making, right? See, if you are karmis, then we are karmis, right? Then why are we talking about devotion?
Yeah,
See,
always in Rajoguna keep changing
this
things.
is
And
what Prabhupada never encouraged, right? This is what Prabhupada never encouraged, right? Because this thing is contamination. This is what Prabhupada is highlighting in every verse, saying that material contamination. What is material contamination? This thing. Devotees wanting to go ahead, and this is karmi thought process. This is not devotee thought process. Devotee will be thinking, how can I get closer to Krishna? Not how can I get ahead of in my material life? How can I earn more money? This is this is not what a devotee needs to be thinking. This is not kevala bhakti. This is not even bhakti, right? So these things, see, which is why Prabhupada's purports are so heavy that Prabhupada said, like, if you read my purports for more than 1 or 2 hours, then you are doing big austerity. because we can't digest it. It's just so heavy. It is not digestible at all. So these heavy, we have to first apply. See, charity begins at home. We have to first apply these things to ourselves. Then we can talk about others. First, let us understand why we are stuck here. If we are stuck in this, then why? How are we calling? How do we think that we are going to progress in devotion? Sorry, heavy, but this is how it is, right? Because I mean, like, we can't take things so lightly because we are not serious. This whole that previous verse, right, which said seriousness. Seriousness doesn't mean material progress. Seriousness means come what may I want to achieve Krishna. That is seriousness. Okay, anybody else has anything to say?
Prabhu, one more point I want to make. Even though this Gunakarma Vibhagasya Krishna is saying, even in Mahabharata time, when Karna came for that Swayamvara, Draupadi's Swayamvara, right? He was rejected based on he is a Sudra.
Yeah, that is because Draupadi wanted to just get rid of him. That's all, right? She made use of.
But that means that time also it's based on birth only, right? They didn't check his gunas, all that. It just based on his birth, they concluded.
No, that's what I'm saying. So Draupadi did not want to marry him because while he was a he was maybe an archer, but he cannot be called a Kshatriya because he did not have the other great qualities of a Kshatriya, right? So I mean, like self-centered and conceited. Because finally, that is what they demonstrated, right? Both his uncle Shakuni and Karna, what did they demonstrate? See, chivalry, Kshatriyas are chivalrous, right? I mean, neither Karna nor Shakuni was anyway, so he was like third class, right? Karna also, see, one rejection by Draupadi, and then he became completely antagonistic, right? Like, where is chivalry? I mean, she has the right to choose her husband. How can he enforce himself onto her, which is not a Kshatriya spirit at all, right? So we cannot see technically. That's why if we want to categorize somebody as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, we need to study Varnashrama very deeply. We cannot say these things at a surface level. It might look like, yes, he was an archer. No, doesn't mean that he's a Kshatriya. It's like, like again, I have not studied this very deeply, but I'm saying, like somebody who uses his power, actually Krishna says, right, one who uses his power for establishing dharma, he is a Kshatriya. Not one who uses his power to just achieve selfish ends. He's not a Kshatriya. He's just a fighter, right? He's like a roadside gunda, right? So he's not a Kshatriya. Kshatriya has like so many qualities, right? Kshatriyas are respected. Kshatriyas are representatives of Krishna. They are Kshatriyas. Not just somebody who has an ability to fight. He cannot be categorized as a Kshatriya. Okay, Harnath Prabhu, you had something to say?
Yes, Prabhu. Like, yeah, I want to ask actually how to identify Ruti Dharma. One, actually, you have given good example, Kshatriya. So, like that, like,
How to
it's
identify
really
Vritti
actually
Dharma? Okay. So first is we have to identify our Varna. Right? So first we have to know whether we are Brahmana type, Kshatriya type, Vaishya type, Shudra type. Predominantly. Right? See, like, because this is Varna Sankara, we are in multiple generations of Varna Sankara. So we are Varna Sankara of Varna Sankara of Varna Sankara. Right? Like that. So we've lost our roots, whatever it was, right? So now there'll be something which is predominant in us, predominant character, right? And we have to look at 17th chapter where Krishna is talking about the four Varnas and what their responsibilities are, right? And then identify saying that where do we fit? I'll tell you very practically, right? Some people might think that this is, I say that actually even for corporate world, people need to know why people have job dissatisfaction today, because they're in the wrong jobs. So for example, for 1 year of my life, 1 or 2 years of my life, I was forced to do marketing and sales, okay, which is absolutely not my realm, right? Because that is Vaishya and I am like far from a Vaishya, right? And I struggled, like my whole life was like hell for 1-2 years when I had to do that job, right? And obviously job dissatisfaction, and then I wanted to get out of it because fundamentally for me my nature is more Brahmana and some little bit of Kshatriya, right? Like so if somebody has leadership qualities, then they have Kshatriya type. Then if they have, Shastrik inclination, Patan Patan, Yajan Yajan, Danapati, Patan Patan mainly. So Brahmana. Now you should know, because then we will end up otherwise in work also we will end up in job dissatisfaction. We'll end up in the wrong jobs, and we will not be happy with our jobs. Neither will we make progress there, nor will we be happy, nor will we have time for bhakti. So actually, it's very important even for those who want to remain in corporate life, right? Just knowing the varna and the type of job. Like I was asking in one class, saying that on what basis did all of us choose our occupations, right? Mostly people said like somebody asked me to do, right? Or I didn't have any option. It happened by chance. All these kind of answers came, right? Which will be true for most of us also. Right, like, so what we are doing is just force of circumstance, right? Like without thinking we just entered into this somehow, and we are doing it, right? Like for if Harnath Prabhu, for you Krishi is where you will be super happy, right? But you're sitting in front of a computer, right? So the nature will come out in the interest that you show, what like really drives you, all that we will know. It's not like very difficult. It's difficult to make the change, so we are maybe just taking the easy route, that's all. But yeah, you answer your question, how do we know? First we have to know our varna, which based on those verses identify which varna we predominantly belong to. Then based on that we have to see what our inclinations are. Like for example, Brahmana is clear, Kshatriya is clear, Vaishya, Krishi, Goraksha, Vanidya, which one of these, right, one should know. Now if we don't have the brain to be a Brahmana, Kshatriya or a Vaishya, then we just assist. We can assist anybody. Assisting doesn't require any specialization.
Got it.
Okay. Okay. I think how many we have? Still 4 verses. I'm wondering if we can just finish this chapter today quickly. Okay, let's see how much is there. Utsanna kula dharmana manushyanam janardana narake niyatam vaso bhavatityanu. O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I've heard by disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell. Arjuna bases his argument not on his own personal experience, but on what he has heard from the authorities. That is a way of receiving real knowledge. One cannot reach the real point of actual knowledge without being helped by the right person who is already established in that knowledge. There's a system in the Varnashrama institution by which before death one has to undergo the process of atonement for his sinful activities. One who is always engaged in sinful activities must utilize the process of atonement called prayashchitta. Without doing so, one will surely be transferred to hellish planets to undergo miserable lives as a result of sinful activities. So this was also very, very practically done previously, this prayashchitta. Right, like Dasharatha, he kills that boy, right, who was son of blind parents, thinking he's an elephant, and then he is like wants to do prayashchitta, right? So he goes to the parents and then he asks for forgiveness, and he does all that because he's worried. Oh, I've done such a mistake. Now I'm going to suffer for this. But he did it by mistake. He did not like do it intentionally. So previous ages, this prayashchitta was very, very significant. Because first thing is people were very clearly knew what is papa, what is punya, and they were predominantly engaged in punya. And when they by chance or force of circumstances engaged in papa, they used to do prayashchitta, right? Because otherwise they have to go and suffer in hell for that sin. But in today's world, practically every moment is sinful activity. So the only prayashchitta is Hare Krishna Mahamantra. There is no other way we can atone to the amount of sins that happen. Maybe there is, but processes might be very stringent, right? Like somewhere I had heard, right? Like somebody was Subudhi Rai, right? Like he was, like water from Muslims water pot touched him, and then he was forced to change, etc. And then some prashchita, like some Veda experts, they were saying you have to take like hot ghee for this prashchita to pray. Hot ghee means what? You'll die basically. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said nothing doing, just chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, everything is fine. So Kali Yuga prayaschitta will be practically impossible for the kind of sins that are happening. But it's important. The consciousness that we should not be engaged in sinful activity is important. And those who are not in bhakti, for them family traditions they have to follow, because if they don't follow family traditions, they'll go to hell. That is also what Arjuna is saying here, because that is also heard in disciplic succession. So which means that people who are not in bhakti are in very risky life. Very risky life. They have to suffer a lot. Okay, moving to the next verse. Aho batamahat papam kartum vyavasita vayam yadraja sukalobena hantum swajana mudyata. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, we are intent on killing our kinsmen. So this is where Arjuna gets sidetracked, right? He thinks that actually they are doing this for enjoying royal happiness. He forgets that they are doing this because it was the desire of Krishna. Driven by selfish motives, one may be inclined to such sinful acts as the killing of one's brother, father, or mother. There are many such instances in the history of the world. But Arjuna, being a saintly devotee of the Lord, is always conscious of moral principles. Therefore, avoid such mistakes. So, if we are a saintly devotee of the Lord, then we should be conscious of moral principles. Right? Not that we just, we should be conscious. And if there is absolute need and authorized need to break moral principle, then we break. Authorized means not, we just don't decide it ourselves, right? Some authority decides, saying that, okay, you override this, it's fine, right? So somebody, senior devotee, guru, etc., if they say that, okay, you can now override this moral principle, then we will, right? Otherwise, we have to be conscious and try to follow moral principles. यदि मामप्रीतिकारं शस्त्रं शस्त्रपाणयः धार्तराष्ट्रारणे हन्युस्तन्मे क्षेमतरं भवेत्. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. It is a custom according to Kshatriya fighting principles that an unarmed and unwilling foe should not be attacked. Arjuna, however, decided that even if attacked by the enemy in such an awkward position, he would not fight. He did not consider how much the other party was bent upon fighting. All these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord. Sanjay Vacha, Evam Uparjuna Sanke, Ratopasta, Upavishat, Visitja, Sasaram Chapam, Shokasam Vigna Manasaha. Sanjay said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. While observing the situation of his enemy, Arjuna stood up on the chariot, but he was so afflicted with lamentation that he sat down again, setting aside his bow and arrows. Such a kind and soft-hearted person in devotional service of the Lord, he is fit to receive self-knowledge. So this is very important here. Kind and soft-hearted in devotional service of the Lord, not otherwise. If you are simply kind and soft-hearted and we don't end up in devotional service, then our kind and soft-heartedness is just on the mode of goodness and it's useless. Is kind and soft-hearted and in devotional service, because in devotional service also we can be in Rajoguna and Tamoguna. Rajoguna and Tamoguna, then it will be very difficult for us to make progress. If you are in Sattva-guna, then there is very high chance of us moving to Shuddha Sattva soon. Right? So this is important. We should not get stuck in the lower modes, because bhakti is also done in the three modes, and we should not get stuck. If the doer of bhakti is in ignorance, then the bhakti is in mode of passion. Bhakti is pure, but because of the doer's qualification, bhakti is called as being in the mode of passion or in the mode of ignorance and in the mode of goodness. We should try to come to Kevala Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti. That is the goal. Now, here we should understand the mood of Arjuna, right? Like before we enter the second chapter, his mind overwhelmed with grief, right? Like, and we should understand how much we are overwhelmed with material things and how relevant Arjuna's situation is to us. Because whatever now Arjuna hears from Krishna, we should understand that it actually directly applies to us. We should put ourselves in Arjuna's shoes, only then we can understand Bhagavad Gita very nicely. We should understand the pain that Arjuna is in now. Because I tell this because if you have not undergone pain in your life, then you won't understand half of Bhagavad Gita. It's very difficult to understand. So if you have undergone serious pain, then it's much easier to understand Bhagavad Gita. If you are not undergone, we don't wish that you undergo, but please put yourself in the shoes of Arjuna so that one can understand Bhagavad Gita nicely. Okay, so with this, we end chapter 1. Sorry, I had to rush through the last few verses because I just wanted to finish this chapter. Okay, anybody has anything to say? Sorry for some heated discussions, but it's all in good spirit. Okay, is that fine? Everybody is happy? Okay, as long as everybody is happy in Krishna consciousness, we are fine.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, Jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhyascha Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Samaveta Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Okay, thank you very much. Till Wednesday. Krishna willing, we'll meet again. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, I'll disconnect.